Thank you for coming, Dove.
Thank you so much.
So there are huge amount of course students in Japan, and I'm talking to them all the time. And I often talking to them about teachers in U.S. But honestly to say, I'm talking about mostly John and Dove because I learned a lot from you guys mostly, and you guys are really role model as your teacher. I remember you told me that somebody talked to you about mindfulness, and you got, what? What is mindfulness? And the person said, you must know mindfulness. And he said that, no, I never heard of mindfulness. And no, you should know mindfulness. And you are a great spiritual teacher. And he explained to Dove about what mindfulness is. And Dove said, you mean right-minded. so Dove is a person who met course and never needed any other vocabulary.
That's right.
Yeah, only Course in Miracles, no other New Agey and any other vocabulary you don't know. You don't need.
No.
So if you try to understand Course in Miracles, you might need other materials. But if you demonstrate Course, you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
It's really different and really important.
That's exactly what it says. The self that God created needs nothing.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The truth.
Yeah, and Dove and John both are really living on Course in Miracles, meaning demonstrating. That's why I said that you guys are my role model. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And one more minute, please give me 1 minute. Every May, we sing happy birthday to John, but this year, let's send John love and appreciation with the right-mindedness. So close your eyes. 1 minute, please close your eyes. And think of John with your heart, with Holy Spirit. And for a minute, just love John even much deeper than ever. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for living on course. Thank you for sharing your learning. Thank you for having this opportunity to share, gather, love each other. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Happy birthday, John.
Oh. But I have to tell you, it's not just my birthday. It's Giselle Lazarus.
Oh, your birthday. Sorry.
And Dove's birthday.
Thanks, sir.
Any other person this month?
And Guy's birthday was on the 18th.
On the 18th? All right, so we're all kind of bunched here together. Today is the actual day for Giselle, all right?
Happy birthday.
For those who don't know, well, let me tell you just a little bit about the story. David and I are 4 days apart, except few different years. Let's put it this way, I'll say we met in the mid-70s, and now we're in the mid-70s. In some ways, we're still in the mid-70s. Although it's also literally true. I'm not asking Giselle how. No, but David and I met through a mutual friend, and he got me interested initially back at that time in the Landmark, the training program. And then I got him a little bit more interested in the Course in Miracles, and you can tell the story, but it was at a New Year's Eve party at my home where he agreed to start with Giselle, I think, at your place, a Course in Miracles class in 1980, I believe it was, or 81.
1980.
1980. And Giselle, for those of you, still has a class coming now. If any of you are in a local, I mean, she's probably 15, 20 minutes away from here, right?
Yeah.
No more than that.
LaGuardia Place.
LaGuardia Place, right?
And it's on Wednesdays, 7 to 9.
It'd be a good complement or supplement to
Yes.
what we do here on Sundays. Just leave it alone. So I want to just make a couple announcements, if it's okay, about local events and things. I've decided to make a couple of changes in our Sunday afternoon programs. One is that we're going to cut off a half an hour. We're going to go to 4 instead of 4:30. There were some concerns about the level of comfort of the chairs, and then I heard, and I thought, well, that's okay, we could. But what we'll do instead, we'll go for exactly 1 hour. We'll go till 2:45. Then we'll take a break from 2:45 to 3. I will come back on in the second hour. Doug is going to essentially talk during the first hour. It was interesting how this worked out because I asked Doug, I put these slides together, to send me some selections of things that he'd like to talk about. And he sent me 18 slides, and I came up with about 18 or 20. And we actually came up with some of the same ones. I thought well, that's very interesting. That we should pick some of the same passages from the Course. Doug also has a program that's called ACIM Gather. You want to explain what ACIM Gather
Sure.
is?
Well, it's a place where people come to take their place among the teachers of God. Literally, it's a place where all are invited. If you want to demonstrate trust, that's the greatest, fastest way to develop trust. And that's how I got started, I think. Yeah.
What he's talking, it's on the computer.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the internet. Yeah, you go to
On the
Paltalk, you go to paltalk.com and just look for ACIM Gather for A Course in Miracles, and we're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have teachers coming from all over the world.
So there's always somebody on there teaching, or he may be playing a CD
Yeah.
or a tape from a lecture in the middle of the night or something.
Or I was playing you yesterday,
Were you?
you and Jennifer Hadley. You know.
You were playing me.
Yeah.
I can play you. The other change is that in the past we've not met in August. I've been taking that as a vacation time. I looked at my calendar and saw I'm going to be here in New York at that time. So I thought I'll just go ahead and have class this August, and then we'll skip the last 2 weeks of August. I'll be in California, so it'll work out perfectly. Those have been also, there's a number of events occurring. There is a major conference in Utah in July. Look that up, the details on our website, which is miraclesmagazine.org, which is also on the screen, so it's easy to find. Then in October, this is a beautiful looking place. Dove said he was there.
I was there at Easter.
You were there at Easter?
Fantastic.
And it does look like quite a place. There's going to be a number of us leading a weekend retreat there. It's called Weekend of Freedom Retreat, including several of my, well, they're all good friends, but some long-term friends. Let's put it that way. I found it. So let's get started.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Pardon?
We starting the live stream now?
Yeah. I really meant before. Okay, so Doug Fishman,
All right.
you start. I'm going to reserve the right to.
I want to thank John for inviting me, and thank you all for being here. Truly, we are joined. It's amazing that the picture that John figured that he would open us up with is something that I actually haven't seen until just literally yesterday or the day before. I think it was Friday, and it comes from the preface of A Course in Miracles, which I'm not familiar with, but it's in, I think it's in paragraph 7, and it says, "The self that God created needs nothing." The self that God created needs nothing. That's our self. That's our one self. And of course, we made a different self that wants something more. And that's what we'll be talking about today. How do we return to the simplicity of what God created? Simplicity is of God. Complexity, we all know about the laws of chaos, the laws of time and space, where things have to be done on time. You're under those kind of rules, and if you mess up, well, you're guilty. As the Course in Miracles says, you're innocent in eternity, which is the self that God created. You're not innocent in time. You know, I know people like to say, well, I'm the innocent son of God. Yeah, the word son of God is another word I'd like to just take a look at. You know, over the many years, I know a lot of people say, well, why is it the Son of God? Why isn't it also the sons and daughters of God? And I know that almost everyone here realizes, well, that's just a terminology. Well, I just heard a couple of days ago, I guess it's Holy Spirit saying to me, hey, Dove, why don't you share this with all your brothers and sisters? And the word Son of God, which really comes from the ancient Hebrew, the word son is actually, in the ancient Hebrew, the nature of. So we are of the nature of God. The self that God created needs nothing. The nature of God needs nothing. We are that nature. That's our eternal nature. That's our changeless nature. So I did hand out and put it on your seat. You should have one. If you don't, we have plenty more. But this is, the title of today's topic is called Young Mind at Any Age, or Eternal Mind at Any Age. And it really comes from my own experience. I am 77. I was just 77 on May 12th. Actually, my spiritual birth is today's date, May 21. Which is the 12th reverse. And I had a spiritual rebirth when I was 32 years old. That's exactly 45 years ago. And I can tell you the first 32 years, I was definitely unconscious, you know, just exactly right out of the matrix, you know, just doing your thing. And then I did have this spiritual rebirth, which happened after 24 hours of not sleeping. And then I took some mescaline. Which I didn't know at that time was going to, instead of seeing everything clearly in front of me, when you haven't slept for 24 hours, all your defenses are down. In your defenselessness, your safety lies. And I was able to look within and see what my whole life was about up to that particular time. And I had done everything to not hurt anyone, trying to always do the right thing, and the only one I ever really hurt or disappointed was myself. And I cried and cried for hours. It was orgasmic crying, I call it. And when it was all over, you might say the tears were moving the poisons and toxins of 32 years in which I had done all kinds of crazy things. And it's all gone, and the only thing I saw was myself standing in a garden, a younger version of me, maybe, you know, teenager, 18, 19 or something like that, and I had a Superman t-shirt, and across the t-shirt was only 3 words: love the truth, love the truth. That was what I was given. And the first book I ever got after that was, I went to the bookstore after a couple of months of really flying high and starting to come down from this spiritual rebirth, trying to recapture that experience. Maybe someone else had that same experience. And I went to Wise's bookstore, which in those days was the only real New Age bookstore in Manhattan. And I found Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. And I said, oh my God, other people have had the same experience. Oh, great. And he did his on acid, whatever, it doesn't matter. Then I found Werner Erhard and Ness, which definitely changed my life again, because I recognized what the ego was this voice I'm listening to that's always talking to me about what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And all of a sudden I realized that voice is not my own voice. It's not even my friend, but that's the voice I listen to. And I went through some other courses that asked, I guess, some of our leaders training to actually really be willing to let go of the ego. It was then in 1977 I heard about a thing called A Course in Miracles. I was sitting in a room where a person had just met. He had done the course out of the Xerox pages, not the published course. He lived right next door to Dr. Jerry Jampolsky. And Jerry had also went through crash and burn, lost his family, lost his practice, his medical practice, lost everything, and then he found the Course in Miracles, and then of course he started the Center of Attitudinal Healing. His next door neighbor was this fellow who got kicked out of Est. He was one of the founders, and he was feeling really depressed and really down. And he was hiding out, you might say, in his basement of his Marin County home, where everybody knew him. Everyone knew Est, everyone knew Werner. So he didn't come out much. And Jerry, Dr. Jerry said, why don't you take a copy of this Course in Miracles and see what it does for you? After about 6 months, he says, he calls up New York and says, can I visit this woman, Helen Schuckman? They said, come on, you can spend time with her. He came in, and as he says it, even though I spent the whole day with this woman, Helen, I could tell in the first 20 minutes she could never possibly have ever written A Course in Miracles. She was so judgmental and narrow-minded, and this could never have come from her. So I had said, well, if she didn't write it, then who did? And somebody said to me, just go and get the books and just start with lesson number one, and go as far as you can. If that person didn't say that, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't have been here if it wasn't Giselle invited me to do the Course in Miracles in her home. But it's amazing how everything always works perfectly together. That's probably one of the things we're going to be speaking about today, that as you develop trust, you realize that everything is being given to you. As I like to say, we live in a sea of synchronicity where everything is happening perfectly. You're always meeting the right person. You're getting the right parking spot. Got a parking spot right around the corner here on 12th Street. Everything does happen perfectly. And so you're looking to bring your mind back to this alignment where you are in alignment with the will of God, because the will of God is your own will. The only prayer really worth saying is, thy will be done. Because you're talking about our will is one, our will is done. So when you ask your nature, thy will be done, you're asking for yourself to be brought back into perfect alignment with yourself. That same self, the self that God created, that needs nothing.
It's interesting when Jesus is asked to teach the disciples to pray. What's the first word that he comes up with? The line is the Lord's Prayer. And what's the first part of the Lord's Prayer? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. The whole course is really about moving our will over in alignment with God's will. And then things work. Go on.
Yeah, I actually, in the Aramaic, the Lord's Prayer starts out, Our Father, instead of saying, who art in heaven, and lowly me is down here on earth. In the Aramaic is, Our Father who is everywhere. Our Father who is everywhere. That's the Aramaic. Our Father who is everywhere. got a little twisted in translation through the years. Yeah. But, and you find that right in the Course in Miracles, chapter 29, very first paragraph, very first sentence. God is not absent from any time, from any place, or any state. Where is God, right? Everywhere. Yeah. Eternity is everywhere, always the same. So it's recently, I've been recognizing that, that line in the Course that says, simplicity is of God and complexity is of the ego. And we all know what complexity is. It's all the rules and regulations, all the concepts of good and bad and right and wrong, and what I can believe and what I can't believe, and all those things. And the Course in Miracles starts out with lesson number 1, which, when you first do the Course the first time, maybe doesn't mean anything to you. Although I got to admit, when I went to Wise's and I opened up to lesson number 1, and it said, "Nothing I see here means anything," I said, "This is for me." I did. And that's because I do owe that to Werner Erhard and S, because if I hadn't taken S and found out about the ego over here, the ego was, this is not for you. It's written in Christian terminology, and you're not Christian, and this and that. And I would have said, well, I don't think I want to spend $30 on this. So I would have put it down, and that's it. But you have to realize that chatterer that's always speaking to you, it doesn't want your own best interests. It just wants you to listen to it. That's all it's interested in, is that you listen to it. That is its only function. So I did get the books, and again, lesson number 1, nothing I see here means anything. And of course, just in case you think that something here does mean something, like, your coconut water means something, right? Just remember, you're the ones giving all the meaning to it. That's lesson number 2. Well, you can go through the whole 365 lessons, as we all have done, and then you go back to lesson number 1. And lesson 1 is not lesson 1 anymore. It's lesson 366. And the next time you read that, nothing I see here means anything, and you want to go deep with it, that will bring you back to simplicity very quickly. Because as long as we give meanings to things in this world, we'll be caught up in this same dream. You can change topics, you can change themes, you can change dreams, but you're still dreaming. A dream is a dream is a dream. So the idea of the Course, as today's lesson, well, actually yesterday's lesson 140, the 140th day of the year, only salvation can be said to cure. Only salvation can be said to cure. And I think it's the only place in the Course that uses the word cure. I'm not exactly sure. It could be. Usually use the word heal. Well, heal and cure is really the same, but it says the world knows nothing of a cure. What we call a cure is a Band-Aid therapy. Well, you get something wrong, let's give you this, and that will help you get through the day, and you'll be able to go back to work. And that's not a cure. That's just substituting one dream for another. That's what we call magic. So in your willingness, in our willingness to say, I do not know what anything is for, you can bring, and that is my mantra lesson. I've used that mantra lesson since 2004, so we're talking 13 years now. I've been using that same lesson. I do not know what anything is for. And why did I start then? That's a story which I like to tell too. The first 27 years of doing the Course, from 77 to 2004, I thought that what I had to learn was in this 1,300 pages in this blue book, I keep going back and keep going back. I must be missing something. What's this thing called atonement? You told me it's my only thing I have to do here, but what is it? You aren't telling me what it is. So I kept looking and looking. 27 years had gone by, and one day I heard a Ken Wapnick tape, which is, people are interested in that. It's a 30-minute recording. I think I offered it here the last time I was here, but if you're interested in it, and send me an email, I will send you back a copy of it. And what it is, he speaks on the clarification of terms, the introduction on page 77 of the manual for teachers. And, you know, I think it starts off, Jesus says, I'm really not interested in philosophical speculation, which means I'm not interested in the metaphysics. I'm not really interested in precise terminology, like what do the words mean? Please, I'm only interested in atonement or correction of perception. That's the only thing I'm interested in. And it was during that 30-minute talk that Ken Wapnick did on this, they actually heard Spirit speak to me and say, hey, Doug, what are you reading the book for? You think you're going to find yourself in a book? God doesn't create books. He doesn't create concepts, symbols, words. You're not a concept. Close the book already. And it was at that time in 2004 that I chose to change my mantra lesson. In those days, my mantra lesson was the final lesson for 27 years. Holy Spirit, I put you in charge at my request, knowing the direction that you lead brings me peace. If I need a word, that will be given. If it's a thought, that will surely be given. And if it's stillness and tranquil mind, that is yours as well. But in 2004, I realized that I had been counting on all these concepts. It was time for me to develop some trust. And trust is the very first of the 10 characteristics of the teachers of God. I heard you telling this to Jennifer Hadley. And trust is the only one that we are really responsible for. We're not responsible for the other 9 characteristics. We're all beautiful, like generosity and infinite patience and honesty and joy and defenselessness and faithfulness and open-mindedness, gentleness, tolerance. I think I named them all. The only one that you're responsible for is developing trust, which is to completely let go or surrender. Thanks to John, who did the research. He said, you know, in the whole Course in Miracles, 1,300 pages, he doesn't mention the word surrender once. But he does talk about trust over and over and over, because trust is really letting go. And remember that you are the self that God created that needs nothing. Yeah, the thought that you need something comes from, you got to do this, you got to do that. If you don't do this, then this won't happen. And you're in that whole rigmarole, the complexity, the laws of chaos. And you know, to let go of the laws of chaos does take willingness. And I'm here to say, it's not a little willingness. It's your total willingness, actually. Because if it's not total, which is another word for trust, if your trust is not total, you're going to be sucked right back into the dream. And you know, it happens to me every single day, and I have to remind myself you're getting sucked back in again. And the way we get sucked back into the dream, and this is maybe you might say the meat of what we're looking to uncover here, is our story. You know, our story is the one that you're telling yourself. And you know, I heard someone talking about Donald Trump, and he tells many different stories. And they said, well, the first story is a cover-up story. I said, that's the perfect word for all of our stories. All of our stories are cover-up stories. They're all masked. A story is really an excuse that I am not of the nature of God. You know, I'm something else. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be more. I'm trying to be special. I'm different. Others are more different than me. They're better than me. They're less than me. So as long as you're seeing differences, you know who you're listening to. Because the ego is so easy to spot. You know, in the 3 lessons of the Holy Spirit, to have, give all to all, to have peace, teach peace, to learn it. And the third, be vigilant for God and kingdom. So it's so easy to be vigilant for God and kingdom when you realize that when you hear the voice talking to you about differences, you're listening to what you are not. That is not what I am. There's that wonderful chapter in the book, chapter 15, section 11, and it's called Christmas as the End of Sacrifice. I always like to say Christ as the end of sacrifice. And sacrifice is not a small word. In fact, it's the only word when I went to see Ken Wapnick, I said, what's your take on sacrifice? Because, you know, I understand specialness, I understand differences. I didn't really understand sacrifice, but actually sacrifice remains the same as specialness and differences. It's whenever you see one thing is better than another. And in Lesson 187, in paragraph 6, he actually tells you that sacrifice remains the one idea behind all the pain and suffering you see in the world. And this is a horrific paragraph. I use that word horrific because it's true. It is horrific. But he starts off in laughter, and he ends in gentle laughter. He says, all who know what true giving means must laugh at all the forms of pain and suffering you see in this world. You laugh equally at grief, scarcity, starvation, poverty, and even death. For the one idea behind all of it is sacrifice. And in your gentle laughter, it is healed. Now, how can he say that? Unless you're looking at your own thoughts. Because when you start to practice forgiveness, and today's lesson is 141, which is a review of 121 and 122, forgiveness offers me everything I want. Because forgiveness restores my mind to source. Because, and it does have the one thing that this review lessons from 121 to 140 have as their common thing. My mind holds only what I think with God. So to return to the mind that only thinks with God, the mind that needs nothing, you do have to remove that sentiment, those concepts and thoughts that you've been believing to be true, none of which are true. As the Course says, not one thing in this world is real. Am I willing to practice at that level? And I admit, I haven't really practiced at that level. But sooner or later, you realize if you're not practicing at that level, you're not going to receive the results that the Course is promising. That's pretty much why I think when Helen says, you know, I'm not really getting all of this, he says, well, are you doing specifically, what's his exact words? Are you doing specific?
Well, I said, why don't you try it? Why don't you do what I'm asking you to do so you can hear my voice even more clearly?
Yeah, if you do what the Course specifically, have you ever done what the Course specifically asks of you? That's what it said. Have you ever done what the Course now? And we all do shortcuts. I'm talking about me. I do shortcuts, and there's been books written about spiritual bypass and, how do you do spiritual, the signs that you're doing a spiritual bypass, which literally means that you're thinking you're doing it conceptually, but you're not really having the experience, and you're wondering, when are you going to start having the experience? I had an experience like that this morning, and I took I always ask Holy Spirit to give me guidance while I'm in the shower. And when I was in the shower this time, I said, because I had seen it in one of my clients. I have a client who's always kind of talking about the past and talking about men and women and the things of this world. And I said, those things are taking you away from what the Course is talking about. He said, I don't care, that's who I am. And I was almost going to say to her, I don't think I can really serve you, and being a counselor for you, because you're really not willing. And all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about she's my savior. She's pointing out to me what I see in her. So I said, what is all this about, Holy Spirit? And the answer was really pretty clear. You're going through some spiritual bypass, basically, because you think it's okay to keep going from one world to another. You know, like here I am in heaven. Heaven is a decision I must make, you know. And then you get tempted, and we all get tempted. You notice in the back of the book, of the textbook, he uses temptation a lot. And whether you use the word temptation or addictions or anything that you like in this world, and of course the ego is brilliant. The ego is really brilliant. You know, of course you're going to be. He knows where all your weaknesses are. That is your weak mind that's talking to you. You see a picture of a pretty girl, and you may be interested in that. All of a sudden, you're not the nature of God anymore, because you see something in this world that you want, that you like, that that you think you lack, and you want, and you lack, and you want, and you're in your weak mind. So in lesson 47, it says, God is the strength in which I trust. So if I'm acting out of my weak mind, is there another mind that I have that is where I think with the mind of God? God's thoughts are my thoughts. Think God sees bodies and form and likes this and likes that? Of course not. Creation is about extending and giving. The soul only knows extending and giving. It knows nothing about getting. So the voice that thinks it lacks, that comes from being helpless, powerless. The last unanswered question, chapter 21, section 7, he says, hey, brother, can't you see that all of your misery, all, 100% of your misery, comes from your strange belief that you are powerless? And he's laughing when he says it. That's exactly how Marianne Williamson got her thing. He says, your fear is not that you're inadequate. Your fear is that you're powerful beyond measure and you're not living up to your true power. Yes, our true nature is incredibly powerful. As it says in Trust under the Teachers of God in section 4 of the Manual for Teachers. It says, God's teachers have trust in the world. Remember, the world doesn't exist, right? Lesson 132, it's my birthday lesson. There is no world. There's nothing outside of you. This is what you must ultimately learn. There's nothing outside of you. There is no world. I mean, we make the world. It's a movie screen. We project out onto the screen. So, if I'm projecting all of this, what is it that I want to see? And there's that wonderful line, I think it's on page 231 of the text, I don't know. And it says, when all you want to see is love, love is all that you'll see. You're not going to see anything else. But if you want something, you're not coming from your loving place, because love extends itself to all. It's a wonderful line in the Course where it says, when you come closer to me, when you come closer to a brother, you come closer to me. When you distance yourself from a brother, you distance yourself from me. Salvation is a collaborative venture. We're doing this together. We're all in the same boat. Synchronicity works because there is one mind. It only looks like there's many minds, many separate bodies, many separate minds, secret thoughts. None of that is true. None of that is true, except in the ego's thought system. Of course, the ego's thought system, which uses the ego's eyes, the body's eyes that can't see, and the body's ears that can't hear, and the body's brain that interprets all of this, interprets it. Well, there are, obviously, there's many people here. I wouldn't mean there's only one mind. Huh? Well, and it says, God is the strength in which I trust. You're not trusting in your little small mind anymore. He says in the first paragraph, if you're trusting your little small mind, you have a lot to be afraid of. He said, you have a lot to be anxious about, because who are you to be trusted? You can't be trusted. He says, you know that. But if you're trusting in something greater than yourself, which is your strong mind, not your weak mind, but my real strength, God is the strength. Is it God's strength or is it my strength? Remember, same nature. I'm tapping into my own strength. That's why the teachers of God have trust in this world, because they know that it's not powered by anything outside of them. It's powered by something that is in us, but not of us. It's God's power. We give, the ego itself really has no real power. We give it the power. We give it every time we get tempted, whether it's food, whether it's good-looking bodies, whether it's sunrises and sunsets, whatever it is that tempts you. It takes your mind away from the truth of what you are. You're empowering the ego to put more temptations in front of you. More, one idol is replaced by another idol, replaced by another. But these are idols of worship. They're not what you are. You see things in this world that seem to be beautiful. Some things are beautiful and some things are not beautiful. Some things I like and some things I want to avoid, I want to ignore. Now, all that ignoring and avoiding, that just gives more power to the ego. The ego says, well, if you're not looking at it, then obviously it's not there for you, right? No, that is not right. If you put it under a cornerstone in your mind and don't look at it, doesn't mean it's not there. So the Course and Jesus is really very clear. This is about bringing everything from the dark cornerstones, your willingness to recognize that you've been tempted again. You've been seduced. And it's not the ego is seducing us, by the way. We're seducing ourselves. You gotta recognize that we're doing this to ourselves. And I know that John, he recited that entire responsibility for Cipher, Jennifer Hadley. Yeah, everything that seems to happen, I have asked for and I have received exactly as I have received, exactly as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer that you're helpless, that these things are happening to you and you're a victim. Deceive yourself no longer that you're helpless. And you're not helpless, you're powerful beyond measure, remember? Acknowledge that you are mistaken and all effects of your mistakes will disappear. So, yeah, I have done this to myself, and yes, I can also undo it. And that's really what we were here for, is that, yes, we'll always be tempted by something. That doesn't mean that something is something that is good for us. The ego said, well, when you get that, that's going to be it for you, right? You're in heaven, right? No. Anything in this world that you think you want will actually hurt you, not because it can hurt the Son of God. The Son of God cannot be hurt, but it will delay you in time. You get sucked right back into the dream. And as he says, delay in eternity, that's nothing. Delay in time, that's tragic, tragic. And you wonder, hey, Jesus, what do you mean by tragic? I mean, well, the Course in Miracles is really why I decided the Course was the only book I want to read or study is because somewhere very, very early it says a miracle can save you 1,000 years by the way you count time. And I figure if a miracle can save me 1,000 years by the way I count time, that's 10 lifetimes. What do I want to keep coming back here for? I want to, do it now. Yeah, do it now. The power of now. Yeah, return to the now. So if you're doing the Course and you're doing it half-heartedly, which means, and I'm talking about my own experience, you're doing it half-heartedly, which means, you know the concepts really well, and you obey all the concepts. But you keep getting drawn back into the world because you still think you can have one foot in one world and one foot in the other, and you can't. You cannot. That's why lessons 128, 129, and 130, which we just went through, this series of 121 through 140. 128 says, there's nothing in this world I want. There's nothing, 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 no thing in this world I want. And then 129 says, but beyond this world, there is a world I want. And then 130 is the clincher. It's impossible to see two different worlds. Two different worlds. So the world that I see must be denied, for it's costing me my true vision. It's costing my true sight. Because if I'm using the body's eyes, that's not my true vision. That's not Christ's vision. I'm being seduced again. And I'm willingly letting myself be seduced because I think that I'm better. And I can keep one foot in one boat and one foot in the other boat. And, and you know what happens when you can't. The reason you can't is when he uses the word world. Another substitute for the word world is purpose. Is purpose. So I'm either in the mind of God, whose purpose is to extend and share and see everything alike, or I'm in the purpose of the mind of survival and specialness and differences and making one thing more important than another, trying to have more, trying to get more. And in that purpose, you're not seeing everything alike. By definition, you're seeing everything is different. So you cannot be in your weak mind and your strong mind at the same time. That's like impossible. That's why he says it's impossible. You know, you're either feeding your weakness or you're feeding your strength. And you don't have to feed your strength. As he says, simply do this. Be still. It's in your stillness that you are strong. You don't have to do anything. There's a line from the Tao Te Ching, which basically says, a line from the Tao Te Ching, which basically says, nothing is done. I think, yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Nothing is done, but yet everything is done. In other words, you don't really need to do anything, but yet everything is done. If you can find it, that'd be beautiful. I know.
We had the
Yeah.
simply do this. I thought it was after this.
Okay. It could be. It could be. No.
Can we read that first? Let's read this first, David. No, let's read. Hold on to nothing.
Okay.
I'll read it. Simply do this. Let me share a little experience. When I had cancer. Oh, sorry. Mike, this is why I got this mic, because otherwise I was getting feedback with the other one on. I had cancer many years ago, 15 years ago, and was looking at chance of dying because it had spread throughout my body. And this is, I just hope, I had the Course in the bed with me, of course. And when I finally let go and decided what I decided essentially, it was okay to die. It was okay. I wasn't going to be afraid of it. I was just going to say yes to it. So I opened to this passage. And I thought it was wonderful that it fell open to this. Simply do this. Be still, lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is, all concepts you've learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks is either good, or either true or false, or good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and of all the ideas of which is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Do not bring with you one thought the past has taught, nor one belief you ever learned from anything. Forget this world. That was a good line to listen to at that point, right? Forget this course and come with wholly empty hands into your God. So David just said, we got to empty it out completely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
I want to say that this one paragraph, lesson 189, I feel the love of God within me now. Paragraph 7, this paragraph is the first time I came through the course, and I came to this place, and that's when I realized exactly what came to me much earlier, that Helen Schuckman did not write this course. Because nobody in ego form, in body form, could give you a book with 1,300 pages, in those days 3 books, and then tell you, forget this course. No ego would ever tell you to forget the 1,300 pages that was laid out so beautifully. It's the next line in paragraph 8 that's really a doozy. He says, hey brother, don't you think he knows the way to you? Why do you think you have to learn the way to him? Of course, my function is to return myself to the nature of God. I don't have to find God. Return your mind to source. Return to source. It's another way of actually saying to let go of the mass. If you can put on the E equals MC squared now, I like to do, because this is the one thing I didn't want to kind of, okay, yeah, there it is. We all know Albert Einstein wrote E equals MC squared. Little did I know that had anything to do with the Course in Miracles when I first came up with it, but the more you do the Course, you realize, you see, as I see E is source. E is energy, which is, we all come from the love energy, love source, you know, where your nature is one with all. That's all there is. There's no limitation, it's infinite, it's all there is. It's eternal, it's changeless. E equals MC squared, and the M stands for mass, and the C squared is the speed of light in centimeters squared. We all know it's 186,000 miles a second. Now, reduce that into centimeters, and then square the number. So E equals MC squared. Now, when you get out of your teenage years and you look at the world and you see this pearl and you say, my goodness, there's so much out there. I want my share. I want my piece of the pie. Yeah, I want more. I lack what I see others have. So as we go through life, this M gets bigger and bigger. The M is all the, and it doesn't even have to be material things. If you're doing the course like I did for 27 years, it was concepts. I was learning all these concepts. And at the end, in chapter 31, section 5, he says, you know, salvation can be said to be nothing more than an escape from all concepts. What? I'm learning all these concepts, and now you're telling me to let it all go? So it was actually, that was back in 2004 when I closed the book. I realized that I thought I was missing something in the book. No, if you think you're missing something, that's the ego thinking, well, I'm missing something, I gotta find it. Yeah. Of course, the ego's mantra, we all know, is seek and do not find, but just keep looking, and you get to lesson 200, which is the last of the first part of the workbook, the first 200 lessons. He says, there is no peace but the peace of God. And he says, but if you keep looking where it's not, you're going to fail because it's not there. And not only are you going to fail, he says, you're going to be disappointed. I think he even used the word bitterly disappointed. In the next paragraph, he says, but if you look where it is, you must succeed because that's where it is. And of course, he's asking us to have an experience, to look within, instead of looking to experience the movie and saying, well, boy, this is a great experience I'm having. No, look within where it is. You are the peace of God. You know, why do you think you have to learn the way to him? You're already home. You're already here. You are what you're looking for. Yeah. That's a Saint Francis, right? I think what you're looking for is that which is looking for.
No, that's actually,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. Maestro.
A maestro. Okay. Very good. Okay. So then as you begin to realize that you've been accumulating the snowball effect, and it's always getting bigger and bigger. You know so much, but you don't know anything. You know what the ego wants you to know. The ego lives in concepts. The ego is the conceptual mind. Once you realize that, you say, you know something, I really don't have to believe this anymore. You know, and that's where your vigilance comes in. You start to watch your thoughts. You know, the Tibetan Buddhists, they use what they call open eye meditation. They don't have to close their eyes and spend a half hour in lotus position or whatever. Wherever they go, they are in meditation. And by the way, the Tibetan Buddhists, in their way of looking at things, you're an adolescent till you're 64 years old. That's true. You're an adolescent till 64, and then you attain maturity. But obviously, the maturity is as you're dropping the big M, which you've accumulated all this mass, down to a smaller M, which you're not believing in it anymore. I mean, you know, of course you have those thoughts. As he says, you know, when you enter the holy instant, you're still going to have a few judgments, but just nothing that you're going to hold on to. You just let them go. You begin to recognize the joke. You start to have that gentle laughter. You look at your thoughts and say, oh, really? I used to believe in that? You know, you can laugh at yourself. You're finally getting down to E equals energy is light, you know, squared. Yeah, as you drop the mass. So in this whole idea of a young mind at any age, and I am 77, and I'm really talking about, you know, the peace that passes all understanding is your willingness to just be here in that peace, to experience your experience, that no matter what's going on around you, that, you know, the news could be terrible, news could be great. What difference does that really make? Lesson number one, nothing I see here means anything. Unless I think it means something, then I'm the one that gave the meaning. Do I still want to give meaning? Do I still want to choose dreams, or do I choose heaven as a decision that I must make? When am I going to make it? After I have all my dreams come true? No. You want it now. You know, this is the only time that really is the now. In the nowness, the mind is literally timeless, ageless. As Einstein said, you know, if you got into a spaceship and you were traveling at the speed of light and you were away for a few years from Earth and then you returned, all your friends would age way into the future. They would be very old, but you would really retain the same age, maybe a little different. But light, at the speed of light, at the speed of thought, when you let everything go and my mind holds only what I think with God, only of the nature of God. And what is the nature of God? It needs nothing. It already has everything. It's been given everything. To trust that. And I just want to say, I was listening to John speaking with Jennifer Hadley, and I don't know if we still have time, but I figure I'll close it out with the, oh, we have more time? Okay. And I heard him say something that was very, very familiar to me, because I had the same experience 3 years ago. He had it, I think, about 25 years ago, something like that. Okay, back in the 80s. And he came to a place where he had almost bankrupted himself. And he was holding his face in his hands and says, oh, what's going to become of me? What's going to become of me? And I heard John say, he hears his voice. It says, I will always take care of you. What was the exact words?
Haven't I always taken care of you?
Haven't I always taken care of you? I had the exact same experience, the exact same voice speaking to me 3 years ago. I was going through some chemotherapy, and I was in the hospital getting hydrated because it was an overdose of chemo. And the doctor said every day, well, you're getting better, so you'll be out of here soon. And after about the third or fourth day, I said to Holy Spirit, I've never really been in a hospital before. And that is true. I was 73. It's the first time I really spent any time in a hospital. I said, Holy Spirit, I know I'm getting better, but what is this for? Ask of all things, what is it for? Because you do not know. You do not know. Ask. Always ask. What is this for? And almost instantly, I heard the voice say to me, you are perfectly cared for. And that is the truth. We are all perfectly cared for. There's no one who's not. And who do you think is caring for you, Bobby? You think it's, when God takes care of me or Holy Spirit takes care of me? Actually, it's your strong self. Your strong self knows everything that you need. You're always given exactly what you need. You're always provided exactly what you need to fulfill the function that you're here for. You find that in that section, chapter 20, section 4, entering the ark. It's in the last paragraph. It says, if you just fulfill the one function that you came here for, which is to know thyself, no obstacle will bar you away. The road will be made straight and smooth. You'll have cares for nothing. And this is a guarantee given to you by God. It's not based on contingency. It's based on certainty. And what can be more certain than a son of God? Or what can be more certain than the nature of God? To just simply be what you are. To restore your mind.
Could you repeat that again, please? It's not based off.
Oh yeah. You find that in chapter 20, section 4. I think it's entering the ark, and it's paragraph 8, and he says, this guarantee given by God is not based on contingency, it's based on certainty. And what can be more certain than a son of God? Or what can be more certain than the nature of God? So you're joining in your true nature. When you join in your true nature, everything is given to you because you already are. What else do you want to remember or to restore but the nature, your original nature? Yeah, okay. All right.
You know, I got some slides. Do you want to?
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of the things I did prepare, but I always find it easier to just share. Purpose is meaning. You find that in my mantra lesson chapter, work lesson 25, the very first line. And whenever you see Jesus give you a 3 or 4 or 5 word sentence, he wants you to really look at it. He's underlying it. He doesn't want to get lost in iambic pentameter. Purpose is meaning. It's a 3-word sentence. It's the first sentence in I do not know what anything is for. So he's saying the only thing that has any meaning in this entire world is as Ken Webber likes saying, this whole cockamamie world, is what is your purpose? What is your purpose? And returning and restoring your mind to the purpose of God, which is our one purpose. Thy will be done, our will is one. It's my purpose, to remember your purpose. Once you choose God's purpose as your purpose, you're choosing heaven as a decision that I must make now. I don't want to go home later. I want to go home now. And he tells you that in the final lesson, lesson 200. He says, come home. When? You want to hang out until whatever? You give, the ego has all kinds of, I can hang out for this, I can hang out for that. You can come home right now. It's always now. You're always living in the now, in truth. If you're living in time, which is so limited, it's bringing yourself back into a state where you are limited with prison bars on the windows, locks on the doors. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And of course, what they call the end, we use the word death. But in the East, they don't use the word death. They use drop the body. They use, trading in my old Ford for a new model, And you don't have to believe in reincarnation to recognize that that's all you're really doing when you're waiting in time. Well, I'm waiting in time for what? To drop your body? Well, you can be here now and drop your body anytime and smile and laugh at it all. I always say, laughter now saves lifetimes later. Because no matter what it is, if you're taking it seriously, no matter what it is, I know there's a lot of things, and just the other day, I'll tell the story as long as we're on it. Marianne Williamson was on it, I think it was at 9 o'clock, talking about, oh yeah, she has a course on youthing. And it was on at 9 o'clock, and a friend of mine was talking to me online, and I had a link to watch the live streaming. And I lost the link, and I wanted to be there at the very beginning because I wanted to record it and listen to it. And my friend starts talking to me, where is the link? I said, I lost it. And then my wife says to me, she asked me a question which had nothing to do with what I was doing because I was on the internet. I said, not now. Can't you see I'm busy? And she said, well, I didn't mean to interrupt. And I realized I had blown it. I had gone right back into the same thing again. And I apologized. It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with you. Nothing. It was my own stuff. The very next day, I was given, that was, I guess, Thursday. And the very next day was Friday. And I was given the same opportunity again. And this is something I was doing on Facebook, actually, with Fran about the donate button. And anyway, we were fooling around with the donate button I hit it too many times, and Facebook stopped me cold and said, "Woo! Who are you? We don't know who you are. Send in an explanation of what you're doing, and also send in a picture of your passport or your driver's license with your name and your picture on it and your date of birth so we know it's you." No. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And if you can't talk to anybody at Facebook, so it's all over. You have to. I got to tell you, I practiced one thing which I'm going to leave everyone with, and I think that this is when I come here really. That thing of infinite patience brings immediate results. That's the thing you have to give to yourself as a gift. That infinite patience brings immediate results. I typed exactly what they asked me to type. I made a picture of my driver's license. I sent it in. It took me a good half hour, which I really didn't want, but I was very peaceful about it. I was smiling. I was laughing. So when you get sucked in and you realize you're out of your mind, you're out of your mind. You chose wrongly. Just choose again. Let's just choose again. So I would say if you're going to take anything away, I hope you take it all away. But on the other hand, infinite patience brings immediate results. It's always about bringing yourself back to this infinite patience. Infinite patience has nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with time. Nothing is moving. Nothing is moving. Simply do this, be still. It's in your stillness. You restore your mind to that nature of God, a God nature. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take a break till 3 o'clock now, and then when you come back, I'll share with you. Okay?